Hello ReLIVE fans, welcome back to another review video. While Anniversary was in full swing, ATeam decided to drop another gacha, and the girl featured is one that has been feared by many for quite some time. The stage girl Kano Misora, cast as Snow White. Unlike in the fairy tale, she plans to bewitch her opponents. Is she worth your gems? And what should you do when you see her? I'll answer those questions and more in my review of Snow White. The first thing about Snow White's kit that you should recognize is her base agility, 1,804. She breaks the 1,800 barrier and is by far the fastest stage girl in the game. The rest of her stats lean toward defense. Her act power is okay, normal defense is also okay, but she has spectacular special defense, almost tank level. What makes her so interesting is her base kit. I'm going to start by talking about Aggravating Rondo because it gives context to the rest of it. Aggravating Rondo is a 3 AP attack that deals high damage to the 3 rare enemies. And as addition to that, it gives AP down to the 3 front allies. Most often, this will apply to Snow White herself. She is mid-row, she is close to the front of mid-row, very much like Diao-chan and Puck, and will oftentimes be targeted by this. Knowing that, keep in mind that all of these APs very easily could be decreased by 1. Miracle Step is another one, and it's actually game-changing. For only 2 AP, sometimes less, she grants evasion rate up to all allies. At level 5, which this is at, that's a 50% miss rate for your enemies unless they have perfect aim. Her other move that I haven't talked about is Soothing Rondo. It's a counterheal to 3 front allies. It is not an attack. The only attack she has is Aggravating Rondo. But Soothing Rondo is 3 AP, making it a little more obtuse to use. However, remember, it could be 2 AP. And on top of that, remember her agility? She is the fastest stage girl in the game, and you can expect to go first with all of these moves. Her climax act compared to her base kit is a little underwhelming, but still powerful. If you're familiar with Kano Misora's act as Pandora, it's virtually the exact same climax. She deals with one glaring exception. Let me start off by saying that. Okay, it deals damage to the 3 front enemies, and it deals double damage if they're poisoned. Unlike Pandora, Snow White will then apply a strong poison of her own. This strong poison is just like Tsukuyomi's, meaning it will tick off 15% of your opponent's HP if they are afflicted with it. Very, very powerful, especially in the game where it's at right now, where mid-stacking, increasing HP, increasing special defense and normal defense is such a big deal. This is base 15% HP, so if you've got 100k HP, well, 15k HP is going to be ticking off. So, a very powerful climax, but not necessarily what I'm aiming to get out of Snow White every time I use her. Most often what I'll be looking for is with the Miracle Step or the Soothing Rondo, Aggravating Rondo, really all 3 of those. They're all basically climax acts. Snow White has 4 climaxes, you can think of it that way. But unlike climaxes, you can pick and choose which one you want to use, which one is most useful at the time you get it throughout the entire game. Her unit skill is like Diao-chan and Cheshire Cat Mahiru in that she buffs mid-row HP, normal defense, and special defense, what I was just alluding to. Right now she's at US level 1, but at US level 21, she can boost every single mid-row girl's HP by 50%, their normal defense and special defense each by 30%. At US level 1, still crazy, 20% HP, 10% special defense, and normal defense improvements. Her auto skills are very interesting, especially if you're considering running Snow White at the front of your team. She has sleep resistance. So even if you don't have her and you see her at the front of the team, if you got Hifumi, don't use sleep on her. It won't work unless they don't have her maxed out, but you can't count on that. She also has poison resistance, which is, tasteful. It's not necessarily super helpful. Helpful against other Snow Whites, but is useful in some ways. And she also has fortitude to make her strong, to be able to withstand final acts as well as other damaging moves. Really, when I'm talking about how to use her, again, I've talked about a few things, but you need to think of what is best to use at the moment. Miracle Step is very helpful for dodging final act. Aggravating Rondo's pretty much always helpful, but might not be the best move to use. And Soothing Rondo might not be helpful when it's a 3 AP, but could be game-changing when it's a 2 AP. You think about how best to use her. You'll get better with her with experience. Her Climax Act, I would not be rushing to use right away. And what I mean by that is, I'm not so anxious to give her tons of brilliance with my memoir. What I've seen is people putting either permanent focus or permanent perfect aim on her to counter other Snow Whites, as well as 2 Fortitude, the jellyfish memoir. You don't need to rush her climax, but if you would like to aim for 5-girl final act whenever you're using her, go right ahead and use her brilliance. Her climax is certainly still very powerful. As far as her impact on the game, what I will expect to see is girls who you can afford to put perfect aim on, such as Snow White and such as Marie, will find their niche in this upcoming season. In fact, a permanent perfect aim Marie will be game-breaking in this upcoming season. Mark my words, if she is paired with other mid-row buffers like Snow White, like Dio-chan, and like Cheshire Cat Mahiru cast as Cheshire Cat. If you have one of those with her, you can expect to do very, very well in this upcoming season. But I'm kind of digressing. As far as Snow White, she's going to slow down the game unless your opponent doesn't have her or unless you don't have her. One thing you can think about it to combat her because of her evasion is that it is actually a stat buff. Take that as you may. Obviously, Zeus can cleanse it, Rapunzel can cleanse it, but if you're running such units like Cinderlala and Jubei, Rui, they can remove this miracle step. So it's a little bit more vulnerable than other buffs. But Snow White users, you can't really complain. It's pretty broken. So addressing the questions that I posed at the beginning of this, is she worth your gems? Should you pull? Absolutely. She is the most powerful stage girl in the game, especially if you have other mid-row stage girls that are quite powerful as well. I would recommend, in the days we have left, which I think are just 2, I'm sorry for how late this is, you should attempt to go all 11 steps. And even if you get her, maybe say the first step and you have gems to spare, I would recommend pulling to possibly get duplicates of her to raise her unit skill. Her unit skill is very powerful. Secondly, should you ban? Where does she fall on my tier list of bans? Well, if you haven't paid much attention, you might not know this, but if you have, you're probably pretty certain that I'm going to say what I'm about to say. She is a tier 1 ban. The level of ban I will give her depends somewhat on her unit skill. If I'm facing a team and they have 2 US 21 mid-row girls like Diao-chan and Mahiru, Cheshire Cat, I would probably ban those two in front of Snow White. However, for her kit alone, and especially if she has high unit skill, she is very, very, very close to an auto ban. If you have any questions about Snow White, whether how to play with her, how to use her when you have her, and what maybe if you want me to go into more detail about what I'm talking about with Marie and permanent perfect aim on your girls, please leave a comment below. I'll be happy to discuss it with you. But this concludes my review of Snow White. Good luck in your polls and good luck in your reviews. Have a great day.